Hi everyone, my name is Kimberly Aguet and welcome to Belize International Yoga Festival. I'm today going to tell you a little bit, give you a snapshot of how you can look up to the stars or Vedic Astrology to get some insight into how to navigate COVID, because it's something that's really helped me and I'd like to share that with you. And then I'll just give some practical tips at the end on how you can do your own navigation through books and websites to learn yourself on how to look up to the stars and get your knowledge about what's in store. Astrology for me, I've had a keen interest in astrology from forever, and the older that I get, the more I see events unfold according to planetary alignments, and COVID has definitely reinforced that message for me 100-time-fold. And I once read in a book about astrology, and they described astrology as a weather report. And although with a weather report, you're not able to change the weather, but at least you know whether or not to take out an umbrella that day if it's going to be raining. And I think that's how I've been able to use astrology to help me, because there's definitely been quite a few times that I've needed an umbrella. That, you know, intense energies and things have been pretty hectic and challenging for a lot of us on so many different levels. So let's talk about how COVID, in terms of the planets, actually started. So there were a few eclipses in 2019, which gave us a few warnings of natural disasters, and gave us a few warnings that we need to step back in society. We need to step back from this all-consuming nature. And due to the busyness and consumption everyone was involved with, I don't think we really took on board those warnings that Mother Nature was giving us. And the things really came into effect when Saturn and Jupiter conjuncted, and was called a great conjunction, that they came together and they were later joined by Pluto. If you're not sure about in terms of COVID, I would have to say that they're the three biggest planets to actually keep an eye on and see where they are at the point in time to actually know how things are actually going. I'm going to read you from this book. It's called The Archetypal Universe, and it just gives a little bit of overview of the personalities of the planets. I know some people think, how could the planets possibly affect us? They're so far away from us. And I think my response to that to people would be, think about the moon. You can see the moon behind me. The moon affects the tides every day. It brings water in and it takes it out again. So as humans, given we're over 95 or 97% water, why wouldn't the planets affect us as well? And I work in mental health, and it is a running joke for people who aren't even in astrology that whenever there's a full moon, that's when all the crazy people come out, because it disrupts water in the brain. So on a practical sense, they definitely do affect us. So I'm going to read first about Jupiter, just some of their qualities, so you can have an understanding about Jupiter. So the Jupiter archetype manifests through our impulses to grow. Whenever I think of Jupiter, I think of abundance and growth. It's such a big planet, and unfortunately it has, because it is such a big planet, I always feel that the bigger the planet, the harder the fall when Jupiter's in retrograde or conjunction with a not so good planet. So impulses to grow, reach out and expand our range of experience to embrace wider perspectives and to integrate ourselves into more inclusive wholes. So represents study, travel, deep exploration are some of the satisfying ways to meet these needs and broaden our horizons. Jupiter also underlines feelings of optimism, joy and well-being, our sense of adequate resources and impulses to generously share with fellow human beings. Jupiter represents those forces that seek to elevate, amplify, and make things bigger, leading us to pursue success and accomplishment in whatever areas of life we consider important. So lots of positive. If you have a very strong Jupiter in your chart, that's very good. But as I said, if Jupiter isn't in a good position, then some of the effects, it's not so strong. Okay, so Saturn as well. The archetypal complex related to Saturn governs the small reality principle, bringing order, structure, consistency to human life. It also represents the inevitable sorrows and challenges of material incarnation, reminding us of the birth process and our vulnerable mortality. Definitely Saturn. Analyze our fearful tendencies to armor and defend ourselves from past and future pain, with a consequent hardening, tightening, and limiting effect on our psyches. With astrology, if you're just starting out, a period that you really want to possibly find out when it is in your lifetime, and it usually happens a few times, is Shani Sati. It's a period of 7.5 years, and during that time is about life lessons, about our life purpose, and a lot of karmic lessons that we need to learn for this life. And sometimes that's not always the easiest time to because Saturn forces us to learn those lessons. So we may spend our other time trying to avoid those lessons that we need to learn, but Saturn will definitely force those upon us. And it's not always easy, believe me. A lot of the time, funny enough, when you watch in crime shows, that a lot of the people that are in the crime shows, that they've been in prison for 7.5 years. So a lot of life lessons, and lots of examples that really hard time, usually, depending on your moon sign or your ascendant. Okay, so that's Saturn. So what happened in first was that Jupiter and Saturn came together. They were the Great Conjunction, and then Pluto came as well. So Pluto is next level. So processes of breakdown, destruction, and creation in the universe, impulses towards regeneration and transformation, purification and purging, profound evolutionary forces, brutal and ruthless behavior, driving obsessive energies, the underworld side of the psyche, and volcanic feelings. So as you can see, that if we've got Saturn full of life lessons, and we've got Jupiter, and Jupiter was actually in its fall as well, and it was met with Pluto with those intense energies, that you can see that when they've all come together, how that would be something like COVID, which has brought so much learning, I think, for all of us. So that's how it initially started. That was a rare configuration that happened. The last time it happened was like 248 years ago. So Saturn usually represents purpose in our life and Dharma. Jupiter represents the Atman or the soul, and Pluto represents Yama or death. So then another configuration of the planets that really stood out was the next year in December 2020. And I think 2020 there were lots of other planet configuration, but it still, I don't feel it's kind of been as bad as 2021. So I'm going to focus on that first and next, and I think it's the most relevant as well, because we've just kind of becoming to the end of 2021. So towards the end of 2020, in December, there was a configuration called Rahu Kal Sarp. So Kal actually represents time, and Sarpa represents the snake. And what happens when Rahu Kal Sarp occurs is that Rahu traps all of the planets. It trapped all the planets in the one sign, so they're all stuck there for a number of months from December through to March 2021. So what they say is there's like an analogy was that the subconscious was actually caught in the rope of karma. So that in itself, you can understand that it's a very restrictive time. And during that time, we had the US election, so lots of drama and conspiracy, and we had Black Lives Matter as well, so lots of anger, control, drama. It was all happening at that time, so it happened for that period until March 2021. I know in Australia too, we had a lot of natural disasters in terms of bushfires, and I think California had bushfires as well. And then in 2021, we also had Pluto retrograde. So we just read Pluto's qualities. So when Pluto was in retrograde, if you're not sure what that means is that a lot of people think that it's actually the planets going backwards, but it's not. It's like if I give you the example, like two people were driving either side and then one person actually slowed back, it would look like that person was actually reversing, but they're not, they're just slowing down. And so that's actually what happens. So the planets, when they're in retrograde, they're actually just slowing down and sometimes to a halt, and then they'll start speeding up and progressing. So we had a Pluto retrograde. So when they are in retrograde, it usually means that it's not a good time. So again, we've had some challenges, I know, especially in India, had a lot of challenges there with COVID. And then we had Jupiter in retrograde as well. So another not so good time for Jupiter in retrograde, June 2021 to October 2021. So I know, especially here in Australia, it was unbelievable. It was almost like to the day that Jupiter started retrograding that we were in lockdown, especially here in Sydney, and then to the day when Jupiter started progressing again, kids went to school, there were lots of restrictions released, and it was just unbelievable. And people were asking me, when's this going to end? I was like, mid-October, it's going to end. I could tell it. And it did. It's still happening, because there are some, there's some configurations happening that they're going to influence us. So it's still not over yet, but we're getting a bit of a breathing space, which is nice. So there's what they're saying, what well-known astrologers are saying, is that it's likely to still be happening to at least till 2029. COVID's going to be still around, and we're going to see constant waves of different strains, as at least till 2025. We've got some lunar eclipses coming up soon in November and December. So with astrology, you want to look out for lunar and solar eclipses, because the effects of that can really reverberate for months on end. And as I was saying, initially that's a COVID. There was a lot of lunar and solar eclipses that really kind of started COVID before it really, kicked in. And we've got more coming up, and astrologers are predicting that there's going to be some intense time around kind of December, over that period, December, January, which US and Europe go into winter. So there's already scientists already talking about different strains, and that, to get prepared for another wave of COVID. So that's a little bit about, just a very brief summary. I did want to share with you So in regards to the full moons, if you're looking for something, so with the astrology I do, I like to look at both Western and Vedic. Vedic is very predictive, whereas Western astrology does give you like an overview of what kind of personalities energies are in it, happening at that time. I really like this book called Moonology to help me with that. So once you get kind of better, you can convert it back to Vedic, which is what I tend to do. But this just gives me some really nice meditations each new moon and full moon, of what to do and what the energies are in play at that time, and just to kind of, instead of kind of working against energies, working with them obviously and making use of the energies is a lot more pleasant. I was talking before about Shani Sati, and I would recommend anyone who is interested in learning a little bit more about this. This book is, you can see, The Greatness of Saturn. So this is a really nice book to give you an overview of Shani Sati and what its purpose is and how to make best use of Shani Sati and the lessons that need to be learnt, because if you don't learn your lessons in Shani Sati, you're going to have to learn them again. So we want to try and learn our lessons so we don't have to keep repeating lessons in life. Oh, I know I do anyway. I also really like this book as well if you're interested in doing some more reading. So Astrology of the Seers. This is by David Frawley. I really like his work. He has the American Institute of Vedic Studies. So he also has courses that you can do. And I really like his book. They're just in really simple terms and not too much jargon. And you can really get your head around the planets, their personalities, and how to, that gives you like a guide to Vedic astrology as well. So it gives you a nice introduction. And he's also done this book to Ayurvedic astrology. So that's really nice too, about how to combine astrology with Ayurveda. So for health purposes and the doshas and everything. So I really like that one. This book is also good. Is it The Art and Practice of Ancient Hindu Astrology? So this, what's his name? James Braha. He's the one who really advocates to know both Western and Vedic. And I do like that, because I think Western does have some really good messages, as well as Vedic, and combining them two together really gives you a good overview of what to expect. In saying that, person who I like to listen to, Nightlight Astrology, Achuta Baba is his name. He does Hellenistic astrology. So again, you have to know how to convert it back into a Vedic astrology. But again, he's into a lot of yogas, and I like him because he has a nice yogic flavor to his, even though it's Hellenistic astrology, but he will give he has respect for the north and south nodes like Rahu and Ketu as well. So I find him useful. There's also a Vedic astrologer, San Gepi, so he's quite good to listen to. He will gives like monthly overviews, so he can be really good if you want to learn some more that way or hear what people have to say on a monthly basis. I also personally check, there's indoastro.com and also Astro Sage. I use those two. I use Astro Sage to find out Shani Sati stuff. I use Indo Astro. They're computer generated, but it just gives you an insight, and then you can look further if you want to get more in depth. But if you just want a little overview of what's coming in store, those two will definitely help you to be able to do that. And I think that's all I have. Okay, so that's me, and thank you for your time, and I hope you have a really lovely Belize International Yoga Festival. Done the vibes.